like that went really good, you know?
You had a lot of passion and energy. You did. You see it in your eyes. That's not right.
Okay, I'm recording. I got sound. I got video. Beautiful. Okay. So, guys, I had talked about, the phony war. Yeah, that's kind of what I left off with. Yes? Let me fix France here. Bring Britain back in. Okay. Okay, France. Paris. Okay. Oh, and I do have maps.
No, maps. Go.
Okay. You want the points. Okay.
Look, it's gonna make me drink now.
That's a really bad English.
Oh no.
So much better.
Yes. Thank you. All right, so let me tell you how Hitler's going to do this in the span of about 8 weeks. He's going to take over 6 countries, okay? He's going to start here with Denmark, all right? Now, remember, when I talked about the 5th column, Lexi, you got to watch my videos.
I wanted to play
It was 2 videos ago. Maybe 1, I don't know. The 5th column that the Romans did, they would send people in ahead of time, so there was a Nazi party in every country, yes? All right.
I caught it yesterday.
What I'm expecting is like immediate feedback, immediate remembering 5th column. Okay, that's what I'm expecting, all right? So the 5th column is in every country. And so they've already stirred up support for the Nazis and created discontent inside their countries. Now, for the first time, what we're going to see in Denmark, Netherlands, and Belgium is the use of paratroopers. So this is crazy, right? Like people jumping out of a perfectly good airplane, but these are soldiers. And they're going to key areas, secure key bridges, transportation areas, and so forth. And they will have co-conspirators, if you will, on the ground in those countries ready to help. And they will fight, but not long. I mean, the resistance is very short-lived, okay? Once the German tanks start rolling in, they're like, we have no way to stop you. We can't fight, okay? Now, was there resistance throughout the war in many of these countries? Yes, okay? But militarily-wise, none of these countries can stand up to the Germans, okay? So then they go into the Netherlands, okay? Then into Belgium. Now, in World War I, we see history kind of repeat itself here. All right. This is Luxembourg right here, okay? And in this region of Europe, if you were to see this on a map, what would you say that was? All these dots. Not a city. There are mountains there, but those will look like these, right? Yep. These.
I was close.
Okay, yeah, you were close. And there's forest there. It's called the Ardennes. Okay, sometimes referred to as Black Forest. It's dense. Dense. Okay, it's mountainous. It's hilly. It's got rivers and stuff running through it. It's thought that you cannot pass a mechanized army through this forest. Okay, but you've heard of German engineering, right? Okay, they're going to find a way. Now, what's important to understand here is these countries are going to fall rather quickly. Now, this is known as the Schlieffen Plan. This is named after a World War I German general named Schlieffen. And what they did in World War I is they came through the Low Countries. These 3 countries are known as the Low Countries. They'll come through the Low Countries, which are neutral countries. And by the way, again, Hitler has signed non-aggression pacts with these countries, promising not to invade them, okay? Now, the French have had since World War I prepare for this day, and they have. Okay, they are going to build what is called the Maginot Line from the border of Belgium along their coast or their border with Germany. Now, remember this region of Germany for many years was a DMZ. What's the name of that DMZ? Yes, what's the name of that region? The Rhineland. Remember that? The Rhineland? That he remilitarized in 1936. So the French built this Maginot Line. It's 350 miles long. It is a barrier, a literal barrier to the Germans. So they've got underground tunnels along this line with railroad cars, not big ones, but smaller railroad cars that can move troops from one point to another along this line underground. They have turrets that come out of the ground with cannon to destroy tanks and so forth. This is literally a wall, a barrier, okay, the Maginot Line. And the French thought that the Germans could not penetrate the Maginot Line, all right? They thought it was impregnable. Okay, so as the Germans come through here using paratroopers and blitzkrieg, these countries will surrender quite quickly. Now, the British did start sending troops over here. Okay, once they declared war and the phony war was over, remember the British started sending their children off to the countryside, right? 3 million of them. Actually, at the beginning of the phony war, once Poland was invaded, they started sending kids off. So the kids have been going home for like 6 months now. Okay. Now, British started sending troops over here just in case the Germans would invade these neutral countries. I mean, Germany wouldn't invade neutral countries, would they? No. So the British, okay, the French are along the Maginot Line, all right? And so they're going to use the Schieffelin Plan like they did in World War I to come through the Low Countries. They will break through the Maginot Line. They will break through the Ardennes Forest. Okay, basically what you do is you use explosives to, clear a path from the trees and then build pontoon bridges across the rivers and so forth so that they could bring their tanks and so forth through the dense forest. Okay, basically creating their own roads through the forest. All right, so the Germans are going to do this, okay? And the ones that break through the Maginot Line are going to shoot to the coast, okay? And then so you have basically these British and French troops in here that are in deep trouble, okay? Now, one of the kind of nasty tactics that the Germans used here is when they started bombing these countries, especially Belgium because it's proximity to France. When you bomb towns and cities and so forth, you create refugees. Yes? And those refugees are going to want to get away from the war. So which way are those refugees going to travel? Towards France or away from France? Towards France, okay? And so as you have these tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of refugees, why are we not working? There we go. They're starting to head the direction of France. Okay, so I want you to think about this. So you got these roads. Okay, there's main roads that lead from Belgium to France. Okay, so you got these refugees. They've got horses. They're pulling trailers. Whatever belongings they can carry, and so forth. So when the British try to go in to Belgium to counterattack, okay, they're met with all these refugees. Yes, on the roads. They're clogging the roads. They won't get off the roads. Like the British are like, move, and they won't. Because further back here, as they were coming, and any vehicles coming down the road, the people would move off the side of the road and let cars pass. And German fighter planes would come by and machine gun along the outside of these roads, pushing the refugees back on the roads. They were training them to stay on the roads. So when the British try to come in, they're met by tens, hundreds of thousands of refugees that won't move. They won't get out of the way. Probably saved some British lives, by the way, because the British were going into the teeth of the German army, and they were being overwhelmed. Okay, so the British did not get very far into Belgium. And here come the Germans. Okay, and they're moving fast. They're going to drive these French and British troops back to the coast with their backs to the wall. Okay. There was a movie that came out last summer, not the COVID summer, last summer, about what happened there. What's it called? Dunkirk. What were you gonna say? Which one? Dunkirk? Yes, yes. How many of you guys saw it? Okay. That's disappointing. Okay, so when I heard about this movie coming out, I've been teaching this class for 20 some years, right? And I'm like, I always talk about Dunkirk. I mean, like, I make a big deal out of Dunkirk. I got like 5 slides on Dunkirk, right? And I'm like, I'm freaking pumped about this movie, right? So I went and I was pleasantly pleased with the movie. Okay? You don't know, and this may be a good thing. Maybe if you don't know the story, because I told people that were going to see it, I said, you need to read about it first. Read about what happened first, because they don't really explain it in the movie. You know what I mean? They just kind of show, here it is. This is, but they don't tell you what's going on. Okay? So if you were clueless about World War II, you'd be like, okay, this is interesting. Why are all these troops on the beach? You know what I mean? So they're on the beach, literally, driving their vehicles onto the beach, running from the Germans. We're talking about somewhere between 250,000 to 350,000 British, mostly British and French troops. Okay, mostly British, but some French. Okay, and they have their backs to the wall. Now, the English Channel at its narrowest point is 20 miles. So on a clear day, if you're standing on the coast of France, on a clear day, you can see the White Cliffs of England. Okay. Now, a few people have actually swam across the channel, which is known for its high waves, rough waters, and fast tides. Because you got a crap ton of water moving through the channel. You know what I mean? It's got fast currents. And so 20 miles at its narrowest point at Dover, England, okay, and Calais, France. All right, just right here. Okay. Now, they're up coast a little bit from Calais in France. They're at Dunkirk. And I have some slides here. Yeah, I think I have what I need here. Okay, so let me put this down. What is so funny? Okay, this is a slide that I don't think those of you that are note takers got down. So I'll put this back up and you can kind of see. And then the next slides kind of show you what happened. Okay. Now this is part of the Maginot Line. This picture here. You can go to France today and there's still lots of remnants. In fact, you can go to France today and still see some of the trenches from World War I. Same region. Okay. Now, I didn't go there when I was in France. I did go to the D-Day beaches when I was in France. And I have some pictures of that I'll show you. Okay. Now, so Hitler invades. No, and I didn't talk about Norway. Let me talk about Norway real quick. Because this is kind of a cool story. All right, so this map better? Which map's better for you guys? This one here? Here's Norway. Here's Britain. Okay. So you got this little piece hanging down here. Now, why did the Germans want Norway? This west coast of Norway has a lot of ports, okay, where you can bring big ships in, okay? And if these ports were not captured, this would allow the British or the Allies to control the North Sea and so forth, okay? And so Germany is actually going to use the Trojan horse in Norway. You guys seen the movie Troy or know about the Trojan horse? Okay. So this is what they're going to use is cargo ships. Okay. They're going to bring German cargo ships into Norwegian ports along this west coast. Okay. Now, the Norwegians think these are just normal ships coming in, right? And but these large cargo ships, inside the ships, they had troops and tanks in these ships. And so they wait till the sun goes down, and they come out and take control of these ports. And the Germans will control these ports throughout the war. Now, Norway itself will not all fall under German control. There will be a lot of resistance in Norway. And the leader of the resistance in Norway was a guy named Max Manus. Max Manus. There's a good movie on it. And what Manus would do and some of the other resistors, they would travel over to England and get explosives, okay? And then sneak back into these ports and attach these explosives to German ships at night and just blow them up, man. And I mean, this just enraged the Germans, but they kept doing it throughout the war. And the other thing that the Germans can use here are airstrips. Airstrips in Norway that can bomb England from, okay? Because soon we're going to have the Battle of Britain and the bombing, the Blitz of England, okay? And so control of Norway is strategically important for the Germans, and they will succeed in doing that, okay? So we got Norway, Denmark, Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. That poor little country, okay? And from there, he marched into Paris on June 14th, okay? So April 9th to June 14th. And basically, guys, it takes 2 weeks to conquer France. And what they couldn't do in 4 years of World War I, with millions and millions of men, they did in 2 weeks in World War II. And so the French do what they do best. They surrender. Okay, sorry. Now, Churchill replaces Neville Chamberlain. The streets of Paris, everybody's really sad. You know what I mean? Now, they don't just start indiscriminately killing civilians and stuff like that. Okay, they don't do that. Okay, unless you're Jewish. All right, now, like I said, this picture here, this picture was published in newspapers all over the world. Okay, and it scared people. It scared the Americans. It scared the British because they know they're next. So in a few weeks, you may see another picture like this of Hitler standing in front of London Bridge or London Tower, Big Ben. Or maybe in a year or so, standing in front of the Statue of Liberty. Okay, this frightened people. All right, so now the Germans control France and all of continental Europe with their fascist allies. Yes, with Italy and Spain. Okay, so this map here kind of shows how the Germans broke through, okay, and broke through the Maginot Line. They broke to the coast. Here's Dunkirk, okay, and how they came into the Low Countries. And there's your pathetic Maginot Line. Now, why did the French not build the Maginot Line up to the coast? Were they afraid to offend the Belgians? Because they were neutral. Oh, the Germans would never invade a neutral country. They would never repeat history like what happened just, 25 years earlier. Another picture here. Here's the Ardennes. Okay, so the Ardennes is in southern Belgium and parts of Luxembourg. Okay, and they did get through there. Okay, and here's Dunkirk. And so you see the Germans break through here and drive the British and the French back here. Okay. What's this? I don't know what this is. I really don't. Let's check it out. Hopefully it works. 15 seconds. That's just an ad. Oh, this is from, okay.
Is it from Dunkirk?
Yes. I need sound. 71, is that too loud? Stuka dive bombers. Talked about them the other day. YouTube's probably going to cancel me on this, not let me publish this because of this, but I don't know. We'll see.
Full speed. Keep coming left. Keep coming. 45 is going to stop the stops. I'll give you the signal. No, wait. Wait for him to commit to his line. No!
That is a British Supermarine Spitfire, a British fighter, that I'll be talking about a little bit later. Okay, and that one's out of gas, so he just shot down that
Is
one.
that William A. Moffett?
That's not William Moffett, but thank you for asking. Here's some early paratrooper pictures. Okay. All right, so did you see the boat in the video we just watched? You saw the guys in the boat? Okay, so the problem at Dunkirk, guys, there's no good real big ports where you can bring big ships in and get these 200, 300,000 men off the beach. Okay, because if you bring in a big ship onto the beach like that, it's going to get stuck. Okay, and then you're going to lose your ship. So Churchill was not really willing to risk losing the Royal Navy pulling these men off these beaches because there was no way to get them in there. There was that one place where they were bringing ships in one at a time and loading men up, but that was it. And so what Churchill did is he asked on any British citizen that had a boat, it would be a tugboat, a sailboat, a pleasure yacht, anything like that, a fishing boat, get it to the coast and get it there now. And in some cases, they like tied these boats together, drug them across the channel, and tried to save the men on these small boats. Okay, here you can see a bunch of small boats tied together where, you know, the beach is being bombed, and they've got basically a bridge to this larger ship. And then you can see this is a picture, rowboat here that was trying to row men out to the bigger ships. On that beach, they left 2,472 guns. That's not like rifles. That's like cannons, okay? 84,000 vehicles and all kinds of ammunition. They left it on those beaches. But they did save close to 350,000 men. This becomes known as the Miracle of Dunkirk. Okay, and it's kind of a rallying cry for the rest of the war. Now, these British soldiers will not become prisoners of war. They will live to fight another day. And they now know what they're up against with the German blitzkrieg. I mean, they know that, man, to defeat these guys, we're going to have to do something really special. We got to devise a really good plan. Okay, this is 1940. We will not return to these beaches until June of 1944, 4 years later. Okay, Germany's going to have its way in Europe. Okay, so this is it's kind of a cool story, just how how Churchill had rallied the nation to get these men off the beaches. Okay, now obviously they felt defeated and so forth, and but they were alive. Okay, and France was gone. So what's going to happen in France from here on out is known as what's called Vichy France. Okay, they're going to split the country. The Germans are going to occupy anything that includes the coast of France. So they will leave German soldiers there. Okay, this part of France will be the free zone, or Vichy. It's a puppet state. Okay, so the French will remain in charge here, but they will be taking their orders from the Germans. Follow me? Now, got a little trivia question from you from earlier in the notes. After World War I, the Allies signed, and many nations signed, 5 nations signed on to the 5-Power Treaty, which limited the size of their navies, hopefully to prevent war. Which country was the first one to violate that treaty? France, because of Italy. Okay, now, the French Navy is one of the best in the world. What's going to happen to the French Navy now that they've surrendered to the Germans? Does that Navy fall into German hands? And can it be used against Britain and the United States? This is a real concern of Winston Churchill. Because if the Germans, which have a strong Navy to begin with, get the French Navy, they will rival the British on the seas. And so Churchill asks the French admiral to sail their ships into British harbors. Now, the British Empire is large. If they want to get the hell out of Europe, they can sail to Canada. They can sail to India, South Africa. They can go a lot of different British ports. They don't have to go to England. Just get your ships out of there so they don't fall into German hands. Now, some of the British ships were down here in the the French ships were down here in the Mediterranean. Churchill ordered a destroyer down there to get those French ships and have them follow them out. Get them out of the Mediterranean so they don't fall to the Germans. Some of these French admirals refused. Now, you got to, hindsight's 20/20 here. We know we're going to win this war, right? Because we know a little bit about history. But if it's 1940 and you just saw Hitler take over France in 2 weeks, in 6 countries in 8 weeks, who's going to win this war? Germany's going to win this war. So if you're a French admiral, you might be thinking to yourself, you know what, I might just be better off working with the Nazis. And these 2 ships in the Mediterranean refused to follow the British destroyer out. Churchill ordered the RAF, the Royal Air Force, and the British Navy to sink those French vessels with French sailors on board. Many French still have not forgiven the British to this day. Guys, Britain has their back to the wall. The United States is not in this thing. And there's no indication that we are going to get into this thing. They're on their own. This island is on their own. The Chinese aren't coming to the rescue. Who's coming to the rescue? Nobody. So if you're talking about survival here, guys, you have to understand the position that Churchill's in. I know it sounds horrible, This is reality. Okay? The British they could just blockade Britain, stop any food, any water, any supplies from getting in. The Germans, if they had the French fleet, they could just surround the island and starve them out. Churchill can't let that happen. Okay? Unless he wants to quit. Unless he wants to surrender. Okay? And Churchill's not going to let that happen. Okay? Now, this is the importance of the moment. This choice. Because there were many in Britain that said, guys, we can't defeat the Germans. And they're like telling Churchill, you need to make a treaty with Hitler. And Churchill says, no, I'm not doing that. He gives a speech. And it's a great speech. Oh, don't tell me there's no matching items here. Okay, I'll just pull up YouTube because my computer stinks. Hopefully I can find the 1 minute clip. I need the 1 minute clip. Here. It's in minute 23. Listen. Listen to the words. Not these words.
From the House of Commons.
This is from a movie. I don't know if it's actually Churchill. It's just pissed me off.
The entire world is listening.
We shall not flag or fail. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
Okay, that's a little dramatic. Okay, but yeah, I mean, it gets you going. No question. Okay, let's go. Yeah, guys, and their odds are not good. They're really not. But the English Channel is really going to provide that barrier. Okay. Now, before I get there, and this may be good for you because you'll get more of the in-person lecture on Tuesday. Okay. But we're going to take a step back and look at the development of air power in the United States. 35. Okay. So we're going back to like early 1900s here, just for a little bit, just talk. Okay. Now, Billy Mitchell was America's first ace. Okay, in World War I. How many planes you got to shoot down to be an ace? 5. Okay. You guys hear me tell the story the other day? Maybe it wasn't this class. It wasn't this class. Okay. Little local history. Okay. So Mitchell's our first ace. Now, in a modern era, when we started having jet planes, the Korean War was the first war where we used jet planes. And our first jet fighter ace. Anybody know who that was? Who? How do you have it in your nose? Nice. Colonel James Jabara. Yeah. So I did, yes, did I talk about it in here? What were you people doing? Somebody was listening. Okay. Yeah, he's a Lebanese American from Wichita. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, Mitchell. this guy's an American hero, right? I did mention him when I talked about World War I, okay? Now, he's trying to convince the Army and Navy that, guys, this is the wave of the future. Air power, okay? And they're just like, I don't know. They're not really buying it, So he's like, okay, let me show you. So let me borrow this old warship, this USS Alabama over here, and I'm going to show you the effectiveness of air power by dropping 6 2,000-pound bombs on it. Okay? Now, this is the moment where the light bulb's supposed to go off, and they're like, yeah, this is a really good idea. But it doesn't. The light bulb flickers. Okay? They say, look, the ship's stationary. There's no way you can take a moving ship and hit a moving target from the sky. And he's like, are you kidding me? So Mitchell does what he's not supposed to do. In the military, there's a chain of command. Yes? So you go to your commander when you complain. You don't go over your commander's head. Okay? So like when Miss Lovelace has a gripe, and she has gripes, she comes, right? Because I'm the department chair. And then I take it to my superior. Yes? If she goes directly to the boss, she's skipping me. Now, I have no authority over her, really. I can't fire her or anything. You know what I'm saying? But Billy Mitchell gets court-martialed. This is an American hero. They kick him out of the military. Okay? But by 1927, when Lindbergh, by the time he had done his thing, they're like, oh, yeah, we should probably invest in this, okay? Because this was way back in 1921 when he put on this demonstration, okay? So Mitchell is really a forebearer to this idea, okay? So as we move forward, all right. Now, but we're still talking about it, right? He's in a lot of museums and stuff. Yeah, and we can tell the story about it. He stood up for what he thought was right. Yeah. Screw the change of command. Stick it to the man. Okay? Now, so I want to introduce you to this aircraft. Okay? I know you guys think I'm probably way into aircraft, but 1935, we put this into production. This is the B-17 Flying Fortress. Okay? It doesn't have just one engine or two engines or three. It's got 4 engines. Okay? It's big. Now you're going to have a 10 to 11 man crew on this plane. Okay? Everybody's got a job. All right? Now this is the job you don't want. This is the ball turret gunner underneath the plane right here. Okay? So when these planes are going to be used, there's going to be enemy aircraft trying to shoot these down. And so there's a vantage point underneath the plane to help defend the fortress. Okay? There's a side gunner here and a side gunner on there. There's a rear gunner back here. Okay? Then you've got a gunner here, a gunner here. You've got a pilot, a co-pilot, a bombardier, a radio operator, and a navigator. Now, this is going to change warfare for the United States. All right? And we will build I'd say close to 10,000 of these. Okay? This is probably the most used bomber that we have in World War II. Now, we'll be talking about the B-25. This is the B-17 and the B-29 later on. We'll talk about a little bit about the B-24, which was an awful plane. You've got the Liberator up here, which is an attack bomber, okay? And others. We'll talk about something like the P-51 Mustang, which will turn out to be one of our best fighters, okay? So just want to introduce you to this because we'll spend some time once the war ramps up on the B-17, okay? In fact, we may spend a little more time on it because I have pictures that I took at the World War II Museum. This one here, and then this is a good picture of the ball turret. It looks like something out of Star Wars, doesn't it? Uh-huh.
Wait, so they shot out of that?
Yeah, so you put a little person in there, okay? So somebody that's small, right here, okay? So we'll put you in there, and you'll fit nicely. Guys, there's a great movie that talks about this. It's called The Memphis Belle. Anyone? Okay. So, guys, listen, when you were fighting, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, the war in Europe, once we got in, if you were on a crew of a B-17 or any bomber, and you flew 25 missions, and you survived 25 missions. You got to come home and train other people how to do it. In the movie, Memphis Belle is about the 25th mission for the Memphis Belle, based on a true story. Okay, and the actor they chose to sit in the ball turret in this movie is Samwise Gamgee, or Rudy, depending on which movie you've seen, or none. Sean Austin is the actor. You guys know Samwise Gamgee from Lord of the Rings? Not Frodo, but his little friend. And then in Rudy, the football movie, Notre Dame football movie.
Oh, that was something.
Rudy. Oh, Rudy. That's it. Sean Austin. Okay. Anyhow, sorry. All right, moving on. Another thing on the B-17. Okay, this is kind of crazy. All right. So this slide actually shows the wounded and killed percentage. Like if you have one of these goes down, chances are you're going to lose all 10 men. Unless they can parachute out as this plane's falling out of the sky, very difficult to do. So it shows you like wounded where you were on the plane. And these side gunners here, they got hit a lot. Okay, 19, 20%, 21% of the wounded came from them. Okay, just some different stuff. It's way too much information. Okay, now the Navy. Let's talk about William Moffett, huh? Yeah. Okay. So the Navy's champion is William Moffett. Okay, and I still got 2 minutes. So okay, so he helped develop the catapult system. Now somebody came up with this crazy idea. Let's fly planes off of boats. Okay, and then we can take our planes anywhere in the world we want. All right. So, but then we're talking about propeller-driven planes that are heavy. How are you going to fly that off a short runway into the air? It's not going to work. Okay, so they built the catapult system. This was April 1950. Okay, this is a flying boat. In case it didn't work, it could land in the water. Okay, successfully catapulted from a barge by Lieutenant Colonel Patrick Bellinger off Pensacola, Florida. This is probably close to where I used to live, where my dad learned to fly with the Navy. Okay, designed in 1913. So people have been thinking about this for a long time. Okay, and what's interesting about World War II, guys, is some of the inventions that we'll see in World War II, they will be developed nearly the same time in different parts of the world. Because, guys, in warfare, it's about survival. And so when there's barriers to survival, people try and find a way to remedy that. And one of those was aircraft carriers. Okay, to move your air force, because air power, guys, and air superiority is going to be key. And that's one of the words I didn't use with you guys that I left out in that one lecture that I didn't record. Was air superiority. Listen, when I talked about how when Germany invaded Poland from the air, first thing you do is take out their air force to create air superiority. So you control the sky. You have the upper hand, literally and figuratively. You have the upper hand. Okay? And so this will help do that. Now, Roosevelt calls for the nation to rearm, which is smart. Roosevelt knows the American people don't want war, but just in case, let's start preparing. Okay. Now he asked to build 50,000 planes a year. We never got there. We never did 50,000 a year, but we did do 23,000 planes in a year. Yeah. You know what I mean? Okay. And a 2-ocean Navy, one out of Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and San Diego on that side, and then out of Virginia, Norfolk, okay, on the East Coast. 2-ocean Navy. Okay. Britain needs help, and we'll talk about that help tomorrow. Monday.